In this video, we'll be installing the master cylinder on this Ford F-150. To start the process, you'll notice we have brake fluid in our master cylinder. So we're going to need to remove our brake fluid from as much of this as we can. To start that, we're going to open up the cap and set our cap aside. Next, we're going to take our tool of vacuuming out our brake fluid, and we'll start removing our brake fluid. So now that we've got most of the fluid out, we're going to put our cover back on so whatever fluid is still in there doesn't come out the lid when we take this out. Next, we'll move straight down and we'll remove this electric plug from the bottom here. We're going to use a pick tool, just pull the bottom of that plug open. And remove the plug. Alright, so now we're going to remove our two brake lines from our master cylinder. Now you should see some brake fluid come out of here, so be prepared with some kind of spill protection down. We'll put down a drop cloth here and start to open up our brake lines. Now this brake line here, we're using an open end wrench. It's going to be an 11. Alright, so there's our one brake line removed. Alright, so you always want to be careful when you're removing your brake lines here. You want to be careful and watch when you start to loosen them up and you start to get a spin. Make sure that the line itself is staying put and not twisting to the point where it breaks. Usually that'll happen when you have corrosion attaching the two together. In this case, the line is staying put and not spinning, which is perfect. And there's your front brake line. So now we have our brake lines removed from our master cylinder. Holding our master cylinder to our brake power booster are two studs with 14mm nuts on them. On this side as well, we have a bracket holding our brake line in place. We'll remove those two nuts now. Now the nut on the other side. And then we can remove the bracket with our brake line, and you'll see you have one more nut behind that. Now with our two nuts removed from our studs from our brake booster, we can gently pull our master cylinder forward and off of those two studs. and out of the vehicle. So now our old master cylinder has this piece here where our brake line threaded into. We're going to need to remove this. So we'll unthread this. And as you can see, directly behind it, we have our new master cylinder on the bench. There is an O-ring on the inside here that we will be replacing. So we'll remove our old O-ring and put our new O-ring on. We're going to thread this in to our new master cylinder, and we'll tighten that down. Okay. Now we have our master cylinder on the vise on the bench because before we install this, we're going to bench bleed our master cylinder. So we have a couple of bent lines here that we've pre-made. We're going to thread these in to our master cylinder. So then we'll take both of our lines, we'll direct them into the reservoir. And then we'll fill our reservoir most of the way with brake fluid. Now what we're looking for here is some fluid in all the reservoirs. At this point, you don't necessarily need to fill to max, but you do want enough fluid all the way around. So now what we're going to do in the back here is our piston, which our brake pedal connects to. We're going to actuate this piston no more than about an inch. And we're going to look for brake fluid to come out of our lines. We're going to continue to do this until we see no air bubbles. So now that we've bench bled our master cylinder, we can now remove our lines from the reservoir. And cap off our reservoir. Now we can remove these two lines, and your new reservoir, or your new master cylinder, will come with two plugs. And we'll use these two plugs to transport to the vehicle. So now we're at the vehicle. We can take our brake lines, gently swing them away, and lower our new master cylinder into place. Now before we do that, we want to point out that there is a rod in the middle coming from your brake pedal. This rod is adjustable. Most of the times you don't need to make adjustments to this, but you may need to make an adjustment on the very end here, inwards or outwards, to line up to that piston on the inside here that we were pushing to bleed this system. So for us, we don't need to make any adjustments. We can lower our master cylinder right onto those two studs and lock it in place. with our two nuts. All right, so we just snug this one up. We'll snug up the other one, and then we'll tighten them both down. And now on to our next nut. All right, we've got this one pretty tight. Now we'll tighten up the other side. Maybe just another half turn on it. It was pretty tight. And from here, we have one more nut holding on our brake line bracket onto that stud. Thank you. And now we can take out our plug for our rear brake line. We'll start with that brake line. Now we'll say this multiple times, but I'll say it right here. You will need to bleed your brake system after performing this, as you have opened the line multiple times. So we will put in our new master cylinder and our new lines, and then we'll bleed the system. Even though we have bled the master cylinder on the bench, you're going to want to bleed the lines because we did open them. Okay, our rear line tight. Move up front and do the same. All right, now we can move forward to our front line here. Remove our plug and thread in our line. Now once I get my two lines installed on my master cylinder, what I like to do is come back with some brake clean, clean up the area here, and that way we can keep an eye on any fresh leaks that may occur. So we'll do that now. Now that we have our master cylinder installed, what we're going to do is open up the cap. We're going to top off our brake fluid. There's a max line. We're going to go just below the max line. And we're going to cap off our new master cylinder. And now we can plug in our connector on our side here. And to finish this job up, we'll need to bleed the brakes and make sure we got any remaining air out of our system. And that's it.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.